BlogTalk Radio.
Welcome to Hell is for Children, a blog talk radio program for and by protective mothers with your host, Geerte Franken. So what's a protective mother? A protective mother tries to protect her child or children from their abusive father by many means necessary. Yes, you can call in. Are you ready? Operation Expose continues.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Hell is for Children. This show is on every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And the call-in number is 347-850-1243. And I would like to thank Bobby Biesinger from World Integrity News Network for providing us with this platform that allows anyone who has input on the topic of protective mothers and can think along with us towards solutions to have their voice heard. And today's guest is protective mother Lonna Anderson. She lost custody of her baby boy to her ex, and she is fighting really hard to get him back. So let's see if we can get Lonna on the show. Hi, Lonna. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you just fine. How are you today?
Perfect. I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be on the show. I really appreciate this.
Well, thanks for being on Hells for Children. Can you share with the audience what happened to you as a protective mother and how you and your son came to be in the situation you both are in today?
Yes, totally. Well, right now my son is 29 months old, so he's a little over 2 years. So this has not been going on all that long because he's not even, that his life has not even been that long yet. But I met his father approximately 3 years ago, and I had just graduated college. I didn't have a boyfriend. I didn't have any children, and I wanted to come out to Seattle to potentially publish my thesis. So about 4 or 5 months after I graduated in August of 2012, I drove out by myself out across the country and moved to Seattle. And his father was the first person I met here, basically. So I came to Seattle. It was November of 2012, yep. And, it was cold. It was rainy. I didn't know anyone. So I quickly, took to his father because he was a person that I could, try to adjust to Seattle and have some kind of support system here. And I had met him through a mutual friend or an ex-friend, one of the girls that ended up testifying against me in court from 3,000 miles away. So it's very interesting how everything weaves together, but I did meet my ex-partner, my son's father, through a mutual friend who's now an ex-friend of ours. So we quickly, I quickly took to him. I didn't really, how those kind of relationships start, typically, I don't know for a fact that he has any kind of like narcissistic personality disorder, but the behaviors are definitely there. So I'm just going to go based on the behaviors that I experienced with him. But it was kind of a whirlwind romance. We got together and, I immediately took to him. I moved in with him maybe 3 months after we met. Mm-hmm. So we started dating in January 2012, January 25th in 2013. I'm sorry, it just turned the new year for 2012. So I got pregnant pretty much 4 to 5 months after we got together. So, and typically, when you hear a lot of times about these abusive relationships, things do kind of happen very quickly like that. And that's not to say that all, spontaneous, impulsive, fall in love kind of relationships are like that, but there are certain signs, certain symptoms and signs, and that was one of them. We got together very quickly. We moved in together very quickly. He had his friends and things established out here, and he had a business at the time. So he definitely had the upper hand as far as being on his home turf, and this was very new for me. It was in the middle of winter. I was a recent college graduate, very hopeful, and to a certain degree, even though I came across country by myself, there was a certain naivete or innocence that I just did not expect any of this to play out in any way that it did. So I was probably a lot more trusting and a lot more open than I probably should have been, now looking back. But so I immediately got pregnant, and I got pregnant around April of 2013. I found out I was pregnant on May 10th of 2013, and by the end of May, that May, he was starting to become abusive and wanting, I found emails to him trying to meet up with other women to get cocktails and stuff. And this is after we found out that we were pregnant. And this was not a accidental pregnancy by any means. He actively and vocally wanted to start a family with me. So for him to, by the end of May, after the positive pregnancy test, decide that he didn't want to be in this family anymore and that he wanted me to get an abortion, that's just not an option for me as far as, what I personally believe and what I personally want to do with my life. Abortion is just not really an option. And then also to kind of set that up and then try to get me to kill the baby we just made, that's a very traumatic thing in and of itself. And so, there was a lot of things going through my head, and one of them being, I don't really know anyone else out here, and all of a sudden I'm pregnant, and now this guy is kind of doing a 180 on me with, what he's trying to do and what he's looking for. So it was very confusing, and I did immediately, by the end of May, reach out to a social worker that I had just started working with, and also she's also a maternal support advocate at the doctor's office that I was at. So all of this that I'm about to tell you is all documented by at least one social worker. So I have 3 different social workers involved throughout the duration of this, but one social worker has seen it since day one.
Because you hold a bachelor's degree in human services, right? So you were working also with these people?
Well, I believe in community health, and I really strive to be a part of my community health programs. And, I was pregnant. It's just the right thing to do, to get maternal support and make sure everything's, and this was the first time I'd ever been pregnant or had anything like this happen. So, I was very, new mothers, it's just one of those things. You're a little bit more hypervigilant, than by the second or third child. But so I was extremely, hypervigilant as far as like getting my checkups and things like that. So I contacted all the people I needed to have in my life as far as, those kind of advocates. And I did not make a police report. So there was the first initial abusive situation came right at the beginning of June in 2013, which I do have text messages and social worker documentation for this. In June 2013, the beginning, when he wanted me to get an abortion and I wouldn't, we got in several fights because he wanted to leave or he wanted me to leave, or he wanted me to get an abortion, and he would just, act out and do kind of these violent outbursts when he didn't get his way, and this was definitely a point of contention for us. So I was starting to see at that moment that this was not at all what I thought it was. But I was already pregnant at this point, so things had to, we had to kind of look forward and not back on that at that moment. So he began getting very violent when I confronted him on some of the emails and stuff to the other women as far as, trying to go out with these people after he finds out I'm pregnant. And so he pulled me off the bed. He dragged me off the bed. He took my head and, smashed it down into we had, a tile, which was concrete underneath of it, and he smashed my head down into the floor. Physically kicked me out of the room that we were in while we were talking. Just very rude, immature. I mean, the night that I found out I had a positive pregnancy test, he dumped a bottle of water on my head because he thought it was funny. after we were leaving a music concert. So he's just all these things started coming out immediately as soon as he got me where he wanted me, which was in a compromised situation with very serious life-changing events happening that he was directly involved in and directly in the center of. Because with him, what I've noticed, it's all about control. So here I was, a college graduate. Now, and mind you, he got pregnant with another girl who ended up testifying against me and met me all of twice for 5 minutes. He had gotten pregnant with her when he was 18. So when I met him, he had an 19-year-old son who had cystic fibrosis. So he told me that him and this woman, they basically lived off the state and lived off the money that they were getting from state support because they were young single parents, and neither one of them really had jobs. And so, yes, I knew that was like part of his history, but again, he was young. He had a child young. Things are stressful. I did not in any way, shape, or form project, now here when he's like around 40, thinking that he's going to try to do the same thing, but just use me as the piggy bank. So that's basically, in my opinion, from what I've seen go down, what this is all about is he wants to extort me for child support. He doesn't want to work. He wants to extort me for child support, and he wants to have control over me and my son through these abusive tactics he's used through the court system. And his father has paid a lot of money. He lives with his father. He's 42. He lives with his 80-something-year-old father and mother in Portland, Oregon, with my son now. And he's been living there for over a year and a half. He doesn't have a job. His father pays him $2,000 a month to live there with my son. And they do have a live-in nanny and nurse and things like that, or a live-in nurse that's there most of the time. This is the person that I guess Adam went to go have an affair with or whatever right before. So let me back up. Let me go back. So that's some of what's happening now. I don't know for sure what's going on with them. That's really none of my business. What is my business is that my child is there, and this woman that I don't know is around my child quite often. And this is someone who hates me and has never met me, and I'm the mother of my son. My son. So I do have a problem with that. And I do have a problem with the fact that the courts and everyone refused to investigate her, refused to investigate them at all, refused to investigate the house that my son's living in, the whole nine. And it was court-ordered initially, and then his lawyer was able to finagle stuff.
Let's backtrack a little bit to the birth of River. So he was born, and at that point, you started raising him as a single mom, yes?
Well, yes and no, because me and Adam decided to stay together after the abusive stuff happened while I was pregnant, because I was pregnant and alone in Seattle. But by that following November of 2013, so again, I had only even been out in Seattle and the entirety of 1 year. And in that time, I met this man, quickly moved in with him, quickly got pregnant. And by November, we weren't fighting. Everything was good. I was in my third trimester. River was coming. I was nesting. He was going to work. I trusted him to go to work and not, be running around and stuff. So I was just doing the whole pregnant thing. And I was still working full-time. I was still bringing in income, close to $1,500 a month with my job, pregnant. So it's not even like I wasn't contributing. I was buying all the food. I was, keeping the house clean. I was doing whatever I could to participate in, with me and Adam. But Adam decided to come home one day, the beginning of November 1st, actually, of 2013, and tell me that he didn't want the family anymore and that I needed to leave. So he basically kicked me out. That was kind of the second time that he tried to get out of it. It sounds correct, and it was like he waited until I was less self-sufficient, more dependent on him, until he pulled these things so that he could feel that he had the leverage to do whatever he wanted, and that I would be compromised either way. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what his priorities are, or how he naturally kind of moves around in the world. And It's not in a high-minded way, that's for sure. But anyways, he decided that he didn't want this family. So he literally stopped talking to me while I lived in the house, super pregnant, wouldn't look at me, basically stopped talking to me, sent me some very trite, rude emails, basically sent me on my way with a bag of apples and bananas and dates. And I had nowhere to go. I was in Seattle. Like, I didn't know anyone. I was calling my social worker. She was like, the best we can do is a woman's shelter right now. You know, like, it's in the middle of winter. You're getting ready to have a baby. You know, nobody planned for this. Everybody was just like, what is he doing? You know, everybody thought he was just kind of like having a nervous breakdown or something, or some kind of midlife thing. But it never reversed, you know, like he never came to his senses. So it's not, I don't know what that was. But anyways, I had to leave Seattle by the second week of November, super pregnant. My mom flew out one of my old friends from childhood so that I wouldn't have to drive home 8 months pregnant by my, you know, in this very high state of trauma and, you know, abuse of what was just happening. And I almost lost River in Colorado the third week of November, 2 months before he was born, because I wanted to preterm labor from just the trauma of everything. So I had to drive back to Maryland. I had to literally drive 3,000 miles back to Maryland with a cat and my friends and everything that I owned packed into my car. I did have to leave some stuff in storage here. And in this very, like, total, you know, ambushed kind of way, because there was nothing leading up to this that would indicate that he was about to do these majorly erratic things that would change all three of our lives indefinitely. So I had to come back to Maryland, live with my estranged mother, who's also very abusive and has a child abuse charge on her record, but I had nowhere else to go. So I had to have, and it was a semi-safe space that I could at least have my baby in, because when you're newly, this is your first time being pregnant and you're very pregnant, you are in a very vulnerable mental, emotional, physical space for you and the child. You know, so it was imperative that I got to, like, at least a safe little bubble for a little bit till I could at least have him and then regroup as my body was healing. So that's basically exactly what I did. His father contacted me like twice the whole time, and it was to send CDs. And he did send a $300 check, I think, once, and then decided he really didn't need to have any contact with us because he was over there and we were over here. He did, right as River was born, he has people watching me on the internet, and so he knew that I was going into labor when I did on River's due date. And so he did contact me, you know, to give me some kind of condescending remark, like, hang in there or something. And then immediately after River was born, was telling me that he wanted, you know, he was going to try to get custody, and that he wanted to come out and see River for an hour in several months down the road. So, I mean, again, he was already trying to pull strings from Seattle to keep controlling me and my son. And it was all just very confusing, you know, but the best thing that I could think to do was just cut off contact at that point, because I needed to heal and I needed to get on my feet for my son. I needed to get back working. I needed, you know, a lot of things needed to happen, and I couldn't have him. He had already put our very lives in jeopardy several times. So I just couldn't rely on him, you know, so I thought it best at that time to just stop talking with him. And I did, and he stopped talking with me. He was supposed to send child support. He decided he wasn't going to. He never let me know. We were basically living off of that and supplemental support from the state just so I could get working again, you know, post-maternity. So he wasn't a part of River's life. He wasn't involved. He never called. He never checked in. He didn't care. And I organized myself to come back out to Seattle that June 2013. I organized myself, 2014 at that point, 2014. I organized myself to come back out to Seattle now with a 5-month-old and my cat, transfer my job back out here, because I didn't want my abuser to have ruined this whole opportunity for me and my son to have a life in a space that I moved before I even met him, you know, for a reason. So this was more of like a personal a personal thing that I had to do. I mean, I had the baby. I had River. He was born extremely healthy. He was the healthiest baby in the, in the room, and the nurses, everybody was just enamored by him because he just had such a sweet temperament right off the bat. It was a very intense labor. I did it completely without any kind of, numb. I didn't have an epidural or any medicine or anything like that. It was semi-traumatic there too because the women in the room really wanted me to get an epidural, so they were very upset when I would not make this a very methodical, routine birth. So I ended up having River completely present and completely with him, but it was, again, a very traumatic experience to be treated so poorly by the staff and things like that. And I was basically by myself. Adam wasn't there. I had a friend and 2 childhood friends at that time with me. And so that was January 14th, 2014 was when River was born at 10:24 in the morning. And it changed my life, and it was everything from that point on. And prior to that, but as soon as he came into this world and as soon as he became an even more real character in my life, everything revolved around him, everything. And everything will indefinitely revolve around him. And that's just how my whole biology is now set up. And I want it that way, I prefer it that way, and that's how it naturally happens. But I did know that I could make a better life for us out in Seattle. And I did know that I had a lot of stuff in storage here that I could have done away with, but I really, again, I didn't want our abuser to just be able to have so much power over destroying so many aspects of our life, because I knew that that's what he wanted, and that's just not anything me or River deserved in any capacity. So determined to get us back out there. I drove us back out there with a baby, a 5-month-old baby, breastfeeding, and a cat, and all my stuff back in the car. And I drove myself back out to Seattle. And I ended up living temporarily from June 2014 to, I believe it was around, again, December is when that relationship dissolved. This person is important because she also contributed to Adam's little web of deception. And all these people were people that I knew prior that had worked for Adam. So the 2 women that turned on me, that, gave these testimonies or whatever against me, were women that had worked in subservient positions with Adam prior. One of which he didn't pay at all. He still owes money. And the second one, he worked as an intern position, so he just used her for free labor. I mean, these women both know that Adam also kicked me out pregnant. I mean, none of this was hidden, or this was all on Facebook the whole time. I was on Facebook with friends and family coast to coast, and everyone was waiting for the baby, and everyone was waiting to see our family, and they watched the whole thing of him kicking me out and having to drive across country. I did a photo journal about that whole experience prior to that and after and during. And so none of this was a shock to any of these people whatsoever. But these are just, sociopaths and narcissists have a way, especially with weaker women, to manipulate situations where they can use self-hate to enact cruel things in the world. So basically what I'm saying is that I think that my abuser used his position prior in their lives as their boss, to then request these things against me that knowingly both of these women know are not true in any capacity. And also there's, umpteen amounts of evidence to prove that.
So he filed for custody, but he had no interest in having you keep the baby even while you were pregnant. That's totally bizarre.
It's very bizarre. The whole thing is just, the pattern of behavior is extremely erratic, extremely impulsive. There's no, it is not based, it's never been around the best interests of River, never. And it's indicative of a pattern of behavior that is extremely reckless and extremely selfish and is very pleasure-oriented. And right now, Adam is getting pleasure off of tormenting a small baby, our child, and not allowing me to even have a relationship with my son for over 10 months now. So Adam was not in our life for a year. This is where I come in, as far as wanting to put River first, and possibly making one of the biggest mistakes of my life by contacting Adam again after not speaking to him for over a year. Now, at this point, we literally live down the street from one another. And we have been living down the street from one another. And I'm supporting River full time. He's not paying for anything. He's not requested to see River. He's not gotten back in touch with me. But we worked within the same groups of people because I'm a holistic practitioner. He was into raw food at the time. So we worked within the same compadres of people in Seattle. So I was getting word through the grapevine that he was telling people in my industry, people that I worked with, that I ran away with his baby, and we ran away to North Carolina, which is where he has another girlfriend, or another ex-girlfriend. So here he's just trying to convolute stories to make sure that nobody could find out my true identity, so that he could tell these tall tales. So he's telling all these women and all these men that are in my industry that I ran away with his baby and I won't let him see the baby, and he's just distraught. And his whole deal is he's a sympathy junkie. So he will create these horrific situations and then go around trying to garner sympathy from the situations that he created. And then he gets these women with their, immense empathy and sympathy for his plight, quote unquote, and then they're very hateful towards me, and they don't know me at all. And it's one of the ways that men severely manipulate women against one another. So we can't even see the clarity and the reality of what's happening. And that is how, that's not only has he done that with groups or individuals that we know, but he's done that with him and his lawyer have done that with the system itself. They have manipulated other officials, they have manipulated situations, they've manipulated environments to get all these people. That's why there's so many people involved in my case, because it initially started with a very few amount of very twisted, Adam, his father, who's paying all this money, who I think in and of himself is not right and possibly going senile and possibly also acting out in very erratic, abusive ways, and Adam and his lawyer. That's who it initially started with. Those were the three. Go ahead. So
did they file like a motion for requesting full custody, or how did that go down?
Well, what ended up happening was that I contacted Adam. When I went off on a tangent there, I apologize, but I contacted Adam December 4th of 2014. So that was the first day, and in his court documents, he said that I contacted him in November. Absolutely not. I contacted him, and I contacted him December 4th, the 3rd through the 5th. So the 4th is the day that we have the document and the email exchange. So again, right off the bat, his paperwork, his motions were not even factually correct. But aside from that, this is prior to any of that happening. So we met at a coffee shop. He seemed eager to meet his son. I did that for River. I felt in my heart of hearts that River, I had a great relationship with my father. I had everything a child could want as far as a phenomenally healthy emotional relationship with my father. And I don't believe that he had that with his dad. So I really wanted, even though I knew Adam to be very poor in relationship settings, I still wanted him to have a chance to know his son, and for my son to have a chance to know his father. Right. Because I do feel that those relationships are important. Both parental relationships are important, and I will stand by that indefinitely. Yep. And it's not about father bashing or anything like that, because my closest relationship in my entire life was with my father. So it is in no way a woman against man or a mother against father. These are societal illnesses and societal environments that are now are very sick and very unhealthy, that have been playing out in the nuclear family dynamic and are continuing to erode and create a severe neurosis and madness within the nuclear family. And the court systems play on this because they make a lot of money by traumatizing people in this way. And so even if there wasn't a situation to begin with, the courts will make a situation because they get more money out of prolonging these hearings, prolonging all this stuff, sending the kids all over the place, having all these specialists involved. It's a very big money-making business, sick institution. Anyways, I get back in touch with his father. His father's seemingly trying to get his life together, but he did just lose his business, and he's now moving back to Portland with his father and his mother, who has a head injury, to supposedly, quote-unquote, take care of his mother, which isn't true because they have several nurses that come in that they're also hiring. So this is a sham for Adam to look like he has a job for the court, because he actually doesn't have a job. There's nurses that come in and take care of her. He might have affairs with those nurses, but that doesn't mean that he's doing any work and should be paid $2,000. He's getting paid $2,000 a month by his father for the purposes of exploiting me, period. For the purposes of looking like he has an income on paper, because his father is an accountant that works at Portland State University. So this is very much the good old boys club, what's going on right now. And they are very, very, very upset that how dare I demand that I have my own child, and how dare I demand to have my basic rights and due process play out, because I'm not giving them money. So how dare I demand that? It's kind of the attitude. And so along with that attitude is you deserve punishment for speaking out and demanding your rights and demanding your child and due process. So that's that they're in a very large subversive, years-long process right now, doling out the quote-unquote punishment for me even attempting to do this.
So how did you? So you met him, and you met Adam, and he and River met, and then what happened? Is that when he started demanding full custody?
Right away, we decided that we were going to maybe just the happenstance of starting the whole family thing, and where it broke off and wanting to pick back up. We immediately got back into a relationship. And I think probably on both of our ends, that was for the purposes of wanting to try the nuclear family for River. And I don't regret doing that, but what that did allow to happen is it allowed him to get very close, very quick with us. He offered money. Like, I had never asked for child support or anything. I just wanted River to have him. At that point, I was working. I was making very good money. I was supporting River on my own. I was taking care of everything that I needed to do, absent of him, through the state. So we got food stamps. And I had never been on, public assistance like this prior. This was not something that I've had the same job for the last 3.5 years in marketing. I make great money. They moved me across country even, so I had a great company. It was not like I had any kind of even history of needing this kind of public assistance. But in absence of Adam, yes, I did. So I was on food stamps. I got child care subsidy through the state, which allowed River to go to a really amazing daycare center, home daycare with a really awesome woman that I was the only person that even was allowed around River. I'm very protective. I studied attachment parenting in college. Having a child is a big deal for me. It is the deal. It is like the thing for my life, aside from anything else I do. So everything that I learned in college, I applied to, raising River. So he had an amazing environment. Adam had only been in his life around 3 to 4 months. He started acting erratic again. He started being abusive again in front of River. I have this all documented in text messages and things like that in March of 2015 when I had to break up with him. So again, they'd only been back together for a couple months. I had to break up with him again because he was being abusive in front of River, and I wasn't going to have that. And so what we were doing at that point from March, when we broke up as a relationship, to June, at the end of June, when he decided to start filing these papers, he was coming up on the weekend. And, we were not together, so what he did on the weekend when he's not with River, when he's not with my son, is his business. But when he's with my son, that's my business, because that's my child.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had certain parameters that we just agreed upon, and I thought we were doing the basic normal co-parenting thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was helping. He paid $500 in child support a month, offered that, which in reality meant his father was paying that because he didn't have a job. Adam has never paid his own child support. Someone else has paid Adam's child support every single time Adam paid child support. So Adam has never actually worked for the money that's gone to River, which is probably why the father thinks I owe him all this money, because he's funneled money through his son for River, and now he wants the kid back and wants to extort me. And that was just for the purposes of setting that up for a couple months. Because the thing is he knew that they did this in a very calculated way. I found out that in January, he went to go see a prosecutor in January to get custody. So right when I met him again to have River in his life, when we're supposed to be in a relationship again, he's already setting up for what he's going to do in June. So the abusive stuff was just a part of this playing out. So anyways, what he did in his spare time, none of my business. When my child's there, completely my business. He had a friend that while we were dating in those couple months, he had told me that he was staying with when he would come to Seattle, whose boyfriend of 10 years, Adam had these childhood friends or whatever, the boyfriend was now in prison or jail because he got caught masturbating at a school and was caught basically as a child sex offender. And so absolutely in no way, shape, or form is my son allowed over her house, around that house, around her. It's just not allowed. I mean, it's just not allowed. Like, the rules have already been broken. The laws have already been broken. We know these people to be pedophiles and predators. It's not like there's even a question. And Adam divulged that to me. So months prior to any of this happening. So that is what precipitated any of this, because we had an agreement, and he was starting to breach our agreement, and he wouldn't tell me that he was going to hang out with her and potentially take my son over their house, where the convicted pedophile lived, which, according to Washington State law, RCW 2609191 2B, absolutely not. It's against the law for a parent to reside, and that does mean weekends. It is against the law for a parent to reside with a convicted child sex offender and bring the child around. You are now ineligible. Not only that, but you're already ineligible because of 1A and 2AI, which states that you've abandoned the child for a prolonged period of time. As a matter of fact, 13 months, which is over a year's time. So you've abandoned the child for over a year's time, and the child's not even at that point like one yet. So when he first started going to the prosecutor. What I'm guessing is that he went to the prosecutor. They basically gave him a heads up on what he's going to have to do to secure custody, and he played that out. Because those are the same prosecutors that set me up in July of that year, so July 2015 of last year.
But why did they go to a prosecutor? Why didn't they take you to family court?
I have no idea. Do you understand how twisted this is? This man abandoned me. I called him back so that River can have a father, and this guy immediately begins weird criminal stuff against me.
So what did they accuse you of?
This is all going on behind my back. This is all going on behind my back. What I think is that he knew. I think that this was part of his guilt complex. I think guilty and scared of having abandoned River for so long, and was just trying to figure out a way to set things up. Because he didn't want to. His whole deal is to avoid child support, avoid having people pay him for kids. He doesn't pay people for kids. He got money and checks and told me that he lived off the tax returns from his other son, Denali, who had a cystic fibrosis. So he basically lived off of the state for 18 years, Adam did, off of his son. Isn't it ironic and convenient that he got me pregnant a couple months after his son turned 18 and he would no longer be receiving those benefits? Isn't that ironic and convenient, So, and then
but
immediately...
What did they, you said that they contacted prosecutors, so what did they accuse you of at that point?
I have no idea. I don't think he had anything. I think he just wanted, he's a vindictive, calculating person, so I think he just wanted to feel that. I didn't even know that had happened until we were in trial this past March, and he was on the stand. And that's where we found out that he had been contacting the prosecutors back in January. So basically, literally a month after I even got back in touch with him, just so River could have a father. And he, at that point, was in a relationship, a romantic relationship with me again, with our son. And he's coming up here and going to the prosecutors.
Right, so it was definitely orchestrated, huh?
Correct. And this is all paper trailed, So it's not even like these people can hide because they have the paper trail there. I have copies of everything. They have copies of everything. Everybody else has copies of everything because I put it out online so that they couldn't destroy the evidence or tamper with it without being found out immediately. So
did you
I
at
had
point,
to do... Go ahead.
Did you at some point get like a motion, handed to you to come to court, or how did this actually play out in court?
I decide, because he won't tell me that he's not taking River over to his friends and the pedophiles and whatever, I decide to withhold River for a weekend, and I say, I want to get a parenting plan, because I wanted it in the parenting plan legally that Adam could not take River around these people, because I was starting to see. Well, I was seeing all the same erratic behaviors, and I was just seeing the depravity of even wanting to do that, of even wanting to put something so innocent around something so malicious and cruel and selfish. There was just something not right with that. I mean, there was other weird things that I'd rather not say on the air that also really disturbed me about Adam's behavior at that time, which also makes me very concerned about River's health and well-being, being down in Portland with him, and also sexual deviance, So I'm very concerned about River with that, very concerned. Adam was showing very bizarre, I consider very bizarre behaviors right as I broke up with him, when he was also being physically abusive. So that was March of 2015. And so by the end of June, he filed papers. That weekend that I withheld River, it was the same weekend of Seattle Pride, and he wanted to take River around this woman that day, and I told him no, and I withheld River because I knew that they would probably go back to their house, and no, I just don't. The whole thing made me uncomfortable. We had already agreed upon it, so he was breaching an agreement that he knew was inappropriate for River to be around. He knew it. Because he would have never agreed to it prior and for months prior if he thought that I was just being, over the top or whatever. So anyways, he started breaching his stuff. At the beginning of that month, I had created something called the Living Tree, which was an extension of some of the stuff I did in college, but just something, videos that I was putting out online about solar energy operating models and things like that. Nothing even really like super threatening, or just literally ideas. And it's just very ironic to me that the month after I put these videos out, literally, so this is a year anniversary of the Living Tree, a month after I put these videos out, I'm being literally attacked from my child. So, that's the only thing that was happening. I mean, me and River were going on walks every day. We were going to the park. I made him fresh food. I'm a holistic nutritionist, so he had the finest organic everything. He had never even had any food, and I was on food stamps, and I made sure that my baby ate the finest food in the world. So River was very well taken care of. My entire apartment is decorated, it's colorful, it's got children, and bright, vibrant, creative things everywhere to create an environment that is amazing for a small child. And for Adam to rip him out of this environment just because he could. So basically Adam felt that his control was being challenged and his plan was being challenged because I was not allowing him to do whatever he wanted with our small child. And so he immediately went and filed papers. On the 10th of July, I received an email from his lawyer, Nathan Kleiber, who is an extremely unethical snake of a human being, and I look forward to the day that I see his prosecution, and I'm there to witness that. But anyways, that was the first time I had gotten contacted by his lawyer. So again, at this point, my custody has never been contested. I've always had sole custody of River. Adam abandoned the child. There was no way that Adam was going to even question that, in my mind. And he had only even been in River's life sparsely on the weekends for like 3 months. Even the first judge said that. Was like, why are you even asking for custody? You've only even been in the child's life for a couple months on the weekend, So the first judge. Okay, so let me not get ahead of myself. Let's do this linear because it's only a couple months that this played out, and this kind of stuff is very important because this is what they're trying to obscure and get convoluted is the timeline of events, which is imperative to my case. Because in the timeline of events, it shows how things were calculated. It shows how the case against me was set up after they took River. So they literally had to make a case out of nothing, out of false narratives of my character and false witness testimonies and stalking me on Facebook and taking everything that I post on Facebook out of context. And any artistic anything was used to demonstrate that I'm crazy. It's just obscene, absurd things. He said I was on drugs. I went and got a blood test so that it shows clearly that I'm not on any drugs. They won't even acknowledge these things. I mean, it's just like the absurdity of the lack of basic common sense and basic acknowledgement of evidence. The thing is they refuse to acknowledge any of my evidence because they cannot do what they're doing legally if they look at the papers that are in front of them. So they refuse to even look at it. To do whatever they want.
Right. So basically, he falsely accused you in court of all these things, and then the judge went along with that?
Well, so we were not even, at that point, at the beginning of July, we were, again, just doing the parenting plan. My custody was never contested. It was never even challenged. We were just doing the parenting plan. What to my knowledge, we were supposed to be doing is setting up a structured plan where he gets weekends. I have River during the week. The $500 is now documented that he's been giving me for just a couple months. And, it was just to really structure what we were already doing. It was never, ever, ever. And I even have him now on the stand during our trial in March saying that he never even thought about taking River or taking custody until 2 weeks before he did it. So he's saying that on the stand. I have him in cross-examination saying that, so this is what happened. I emailed the prosecutor and his lawyer back on July 13th, and I said, this is what I want. This should be very cut and dry. I don't think I need a lawyer. We're just putting into writing what we've already decided. Basically, what Adam was telling me, I was repeating back to them. That's what we had agreed upon, so that's, to my knowledge, what was going on. Now, obviously, the prosecutor had more information about this than I did because the way she kept saying we cannot move forward until you sign over that Adam is River's father, even though we got a buccal swab and for some reason it didn't come back 100% accurate. That's impossible, but they needed me to sign the paper saying that Adam was, in fact, River's father because he wasn't there at the birth. So literally, like a week after I signed this document, because I kept putting it off because I'm like, something's weird about this. Like, why are they so pressed on getting this document, Yeah. Like, I would rather go down and sit down and do, like, a normal, what I thought was just going to be, like, a mediation, and
right.
And just basic organization of what we were already doing. So, and again, Adam didn't have a job at this point at all. Like, his father wasn't even pretending that he was, like, working for him. Like, there's no way that he could without this lawyer involved, there's no way they would laugh at him. You know, he's worse off than I am. He's, like, more disorganized than I am, and I'm the mother, the single mother, having to, like, do everything herself. And he's got everything paid for, taken care of, and it's just a mess. So there was, in my mind, there was no way that he could get custody. So, again, I did not have that fear at that time. But I did start to see that Adam's behavior. So during the month of July last year, when the beginning that all this started, Adam's behavior was increasingly getting more erratic. And he came to my house on July 26th, the end of July. I hadn't turned in the paper yet. I turned in the paper by the end of July. I wanted him to come see River because he hadn't seen River in a couple weeks because of me saying I don't want River going over to that person's house. So he came to see River, but he didn't come to see River. He came to blackmail me and bait me into a conversation about this girl and then record it. And so he was secretly recording me talking about this girl. And Adam was very psychologically abusive with me, very, you know, just weird, always kind of trying to create an insecure environment or, you know, make me feel insecure about myself or, you know, whatever, my looks, my body, whatever. So it was very weird that he was so interested in this girl because it was someone that he had told me he didn't think was very, you know, appealing. And all of a sudden he was really, really interested in taking River over there and being over there every weekend. And you know, so this conversation that he chased me on was a very, like, just personal, me reflecting back to him, you know, some of the abuse that he's done to me. And just saying, you know, it's unacceptable that you want to take my kid over someone with such low moral standards, you know? If,
right.
Like, if she's going to be with someone that's been with someone that's hurt children, it's just not acceptable. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, it wasn't even that big of a deal. But for him to, in front of my son, secretly record me. And so I realized what was happening as it was happening. And I was kind of like in shock. And I just out of like impulse went to reach for the phone to turn it off. And he immediately snatched the phone, but, you know, my hand was already on it at that point. So he started wrestling with the phone, and I was like, Adam, turn it off. What are you doing? You're taping me in my home? Like, you're supposed to be here playing with River. It was just so bizarre. The whole thing was bizarre because, again, at this point, nothing had happened other than us trying to get the parenting plan figured out and then me withholding River. So I think he got so scared that he was either going to be found out or something was going to be further investigated there first, that he wanted to preemptively strike with me. So he was literally trying to set me up and blackmail me. Well, unbeknownst to him, it's illegal to do that. So, but he basically wrestled with me to get this thing turned off as he was recording and threw me up against the wall in front of my son, and it's a brick wall. So it split my muscle. I had a huge bruise. You know, and that was also that he could get out of the house with this recording, you know. And it's just, it was just, the whole thing was just like extremely traumatic, extremely shocking. You know, I was just mortified. I had never done anything like that before, like, you know, literally try to like secretly bait me into something. So I knew at that moment, and this was July 26th. This was two and a half weeks before I received the papers that he wanted to take custody of River. So I knew in that moment when I realized that he was recording me and I went to go reach to turn it off and then he started tussling with me and threw me up against the wall. I knew that he was going to try to, the reason he had done that is because he was trying to do something nefarious against me and to take River. So I immediately kind of started panicking after he left that day. Trying to find legal help, trying to go to domestic violence shelters. I was calling all the shelters in the area. I was talking to my social worker. I was getting extremely anxious because mother's instinct and intuition knows, you know. And now we've had another domestic violence incident in my home on my birthday. We're not even together, and it was for the purposes of blackmail. So I knew that something was coming, and I needed to get legal support. I knew that he had a lawyer. So I was, I would drop River off at his daycare, but then I would like frantically, call every place I could, call every lawyer, Google everything, trying to figure out how to go about this, and also trying to figure out how I could just process basic paperwork for the parenting plan, because I knew too that so I contacted the prosecutor the next day, and I didn't want to throw Adam under the bus, even though, again, this was a very traumatic thing, but we're still trying to work out parental things. So I didn't want to immediately tell her about him throwing me up against the wall. But I did say, look, he came over here. He was supposed to come see River. I'm talking to the prosecutor in an email on July 27th, the day after the incident happened. And he was supposed to come over here, see River, and he ended up recording me. I reached for his phone. He threw me up against the wall to get me off of his phone, and this was all in front of River. I might not have said the part about him throwing me up against the wall because I didn't want him to not be able to see his son. I know that sounds unhealthy, but
I understand it.
Literally, that was my priority the whole time, was to make sure that me and River were both in his life, regardless of whatever issues we were working out, which obviously, there were many. So she was like, I understand your concerns. I understand your concerns about, taking River over to the other house or whatever, but we cannot do anything without this paper. So basically, she's saying, look, until you sign that Adam is River's father, we can't move forward on anything. And she moved forward on nothing. And within a week and a half, so Adam had 2 visits with River, July and August. The last time he visited River was the end of June in 2015, because he wanted to take River over to his friend's house, who was a convicted pedophile, convicted in jail for pedophilia. So there was only been 3 times that Adam had even seen River in 3 months, and all 3 of those were traumatic for both me and River, because the end of June I had to take River back because Adam was trying to take him over there. In July, River had to watch his father record me and then throw me up against the wall to get the phone away to get out of the house with the recording. And then on August 8th and 9th, which was Adam's last visitation with River comes home with a black eye. And because Adam's behavior was so erratic at the end of July, I made Adam sign something saying, I promise not to kidnap River. I'm going to bring him back by 8 p.m., and I understand the police will be called if I don't, because I knew at that moment his behavior is so crazy, so erratic. And again, at this point, I didn't realize that the prosecutors and the state was not on my side. I did not realize that at all. I thought that me reaching out for help to them continuously was me reaching out for help continuously. I wasn't bringing anything false to the table, so I had nothing to worry about, in my mind anyway. And so I get Adam to sign that paper saying that he'll basically sign River in and out, both the 8th and the 9th of August, his last visitation with River. On the 9th, River comes home with a black eye. Adam can't tell me why or how it happened, and every single time that River's come back from Adam, he's got bruises and bumps and things, abrasions on his head. And at first I thought maybe he was just, they're boys, they're playful, whatever. But now knowing this consistent pattern of violent behavior from Adam and just how rough he is, I feel that River is not safe with me. I do not feel that River is in any way physically, emotionally, or otherwise safe with Adam Lewis at all. And I know that to be a fact. And I have pictures of this. So, again, my custody was not contested at this point. This is August 9th of 2015. So this was less than a year ago. River's still in my full custody.
Let's take a little break. Let's take a little break. And then when we come back, tell us how all of this, tell us whether you went to Child Protective Services about this black eye thing and the abuse, and then share with us how all these events were used against you in court, basically, following all of this. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
Thank you for listening to all my tangents there.
Okay, yeah, no, it's a crazy story. So
it is.
We'll hear how it developed after our little break. So I'll see you on the other side. And welcome back to Hell is for Children. And today I'm talking to Lonna Anderson, who lost custody of her baby boy, River, to her ex, who really wasn't interested in even having a baby, but once the baby was born, started to try and get custody, even though he was bringing the baby around to inappropriate people and being abusive to Lonna and the baby as well. So where we are now in the story is that River came back from the last visit with Adam with a black eye, and I was wondering, Lonna, did you go to CPS to report this?
What I did was, so it was only 2 to 3 days, because I think Adam saw my reaction to the black eye. And again, he was very hypervigilant to protect himself during this whole process of being found out. So it wasn't even 2 to 3 days. Again, my custody was not contested. I was trying to get in touch with domestic violence advocates. So I thought I was already involved with the right people who I could, show this note to that I had Adam sign. But the way, one of the main tactics that Adam and his lawyer have used through all of this is to rush everything. So as soon as something happened, so that happened on the 9th, that was the last time I got Adam to sign River out and say he wouldn't kidnap River. By the 11th, that is the morning of Tuesday the 11th, I received paperwork saying that Adam was charging me with being abusive and being negligent of River, and basically just turning the whole thing around. So within days of even getting, because of Adam's behavior, and this shows there was never anything spoken about custody. Never, ever. Adam didn't even show interest. There was nothing until I actually received those papers. 2 days after River came home with a black eye, did I ever even think that Adam even wanted custody, because Adam didn't even have his life together. He was living with his parents, he's 40, now 42, no job, no aspirations, no direction, no anything. So it wasn't even fathomable to me that he would even, why would he want a baby? He doesn't have a life conducive to supporting a baby, and he was partying a lot. He was coming over here very disheveled, smelling like alcohol. The other thing that I want to make mention is the day that I decided to pull River out of the car on June 29th, when Adam actually went and filed for all this stuff right after, or at least filed for a lawyer, Adam's car smelled like alcohol. So that was the deciding factor in pulling River out. Yes, I was discussing with him whether or not he was trying to take my son over to this person's house of known questionable nature. The deciding factor was that and the alcohol smell in the car. Because I knew Adam wasn't even in it, he'd been partying, wasn't in his right mind, and he just didn't care. And could have been drinking that morning even, so I wasn't going to put my son at risk. That's one of the ways that they used to get these papers in motion, was to say that I unlawfully withheld River. Well, first of all, Adam had no custody at this time. Adam wasn't even officially the father at this time. According to RCW 2609-191, 2B is what is the law, the Washington State family law, that states that Adam is to have no residential time and limited visitation time when the parent lives with a convicted sex offender, and he was staying there routinely on the weekends. So that is residential. So this was all, everything that I did was all completely within the law. But what the prosecutors and what the lawyers and the state now is trying to, at that point and now, is trying to do to get this done, even though I know the law, even though I studied the law and I have the printout, they don't feel that I am allowed to know the law because I haven't paid thousands upon thousands of dollars for law school, and I haven't gotten psychologically brainwashed and manipulated to get in this little clique of corruption. So I'm not, in their eyes, not allowed to know the law like this without a lawyer. And to even participate in this because I've not been exploited by other lawyers and other state officials, or allowed myself to do that by paying them to do these things anyway. Again, this is part of what's happening now with a lot of these court proceedings is a punishment to me for challenging the way that the structure of the system is set up. That a mother can't learn the law and represent herself pro se with evidence. Even at the first hearing, most of my evidence that would have barred Adam from even taking River, Adam is ineligible. He abandoned the child for 13 months. He is ineligible for residential time to have custody like this. It is not allowed by Washington state law. It is not allowed. So every single judge and lawyer that participated in this knowingly and willingly denied evidence, like official evidence, also by Washington state law, RCW 2609191-7B, at the end of that juncture of code, states that a social worker is the only person that is supposed to arbitrate what is domestic violence, what is child abuse, what is blah, blah, blah. So I was seeing a social worker, a state licensed social worker the entire time, documented. Adam is documented for having drugged me off the bed pregnant, having abandoned me pregnant. All this stuff is documented. All this stuff was given to the court by the first hearing. So on August 11th through August 20th is when I had to have all this stuff in. Adam also knew, and I have text messages to prove it, that the babysitter was going out of town so that I would have River the entire time, full time, for these weeks, so that Adam was supposed to help me. But again, he wasn't challenging custody at this point. So he waited until he found out that the babysitter was going away, that I had River the whole time. So all that research that I had to do, everything that I had to do to present at the first hearing, which was August 26th, I believe, everything I had to do to present at that first hearing had to be done by the 20th. And I got the papers on the 11th. And there's weekends in that. You know, so I was calling officials. I was trying to get character witness statements, trying to do anything I knew to do to protect me and my son and show the judge, you know, what the real situation was here. And the judge was very reasonable and absolutely refused to remove River from my custody. He saw the evidence. He saw that there were multiple, not just one or two social workers, but 3 social workers coast to coast, all saying the same thing, that Adam was an abuser, abandoned me pregnant. He documented, you know, domestic abuse, which again, part of the RCW 2609191 code, in the first section states that, you know, documentation of domestic or physical abuse, you don't have residential time. You don't get custody. You are not allowed to even negotiate that. If I chose to allow River to be with Adam on the weekends, which is what we were trying to proceed to do, then that's based on our volition. But according to Washington state law, they cannot enforce a child to go live with someone that's broken pretty much every restriction available for a parent to break to not be allowed residential or custody. So it was absurd to me. So basically what the judge did, this was August 26th, he said, okay, you have a continuance because the mother needs to get legal help. You know, she needs more legal guidance. But he saw that I had the stack of evidence and said verbatim, which was also not documented on court records, but stated verbatim in the courtroom that he was not removing the child from his mother, that the opposing counsel had no case, that he didn't even understand why they were there, and that he wasn't going to be removing the child from his mother. And so I think that really upset the lawyer and Adam, because they thought it was going to be an easy thing there. So what the judge did at that moment was grant a continuance for the 8th of September. What I did, as soon as Adam I was trying to talk to domestic violence advocates. I talked to the prosecutor on which way to proceed. She wouldn't tell me any legal advice, whatever. I guess she can't. But they knew that by July 26th that I was trying to proceed forward with making people aware of the domestic violence situation that happened. So I filed, instinctively, intuitively, or otherwise, filed a restraining order against Adam, the first of 3, on August 19th. We had a hearing on September 2nd for my restraining order against him. That judge refused, basically said because I touched his phone on a technicality that she wasn't going to grant the restraining order, the official restraining order, and even though she had documented evidence to put it in context that this guy had been abusive for years. So again, this is the second judge that is holding the documented evidence that's on file with the courts, the documented evidence that states by law that Adam is not allowed to have River at all. And now this is the second judge that is even refusing to look at it. Now this is the second. So the continuance to go back and see Judge Khan, who was the first judge, is for the 8th of September. Now this is the month that they took River, so I'm just trying to give a timeline of events kind of week by week so that you can see how this played out. So they denied me the restraining order on the 2nd, which was very upsetting. And it showed me right then and there that Adam boldly lied. I have text messages saying I will never disrespectfully touch you again after me quoting all the things that he does physically to abuse me. I have a text message of him admitting to it. And then I have the documentation in the paperwork stating I have never touched Lonna Anderson. She's bringing this in retaliation against me for trying to take custody. Blah, blah, basic bold-faced lie, bold-faced perjury. It's stating right there in her hand that she has evidence of him admitting to these things, but refuses, again, to look at the evidence and dismisses it based on a technicality. So the 8th, I'm supposed to come back and Judge Khan told me to go to the legal advocate at the court. I went there. They sent me away numerous times. They would go back, make a phone call, send me away. So I had one of the girls sign on the paper saying that I was here because I'm like, look, I got to go back to court. I need the judge to know that I did what he requested me to do, and you keep sending me away. So she signed it and circled 20, put a 20 and then circled it. And I came back to the court on the 8th expecting to see Judge Khan, already knowing that Adam committed perjury a week prior against me. So now I know that he's not even opposed to lying on the stand and against evidence. And so I'm a little bit nervous that I know that I have enough evidence to protect me and River. And I walk in there, and the prosecutor, Jamie Johnson, who I had a very weird and she was extremely unprofessional. I had to write a complaint against her on the first hearing of the 26th because she was so unprofessional in front of the courtroom and against my case. And again, I didn't understand the full extent of the state being involved and everybody kind of working this to their benefit and working this around lawful procedures. But I knew enough to try to protect myself. So that is documented on file. But when I came in on the 8th for my continuance, she acted like she didn't know me. So the prosecutor acted like she didn't know who I was, even though we had this huge interaction and I had to do a write-up against her in the previous hearing. There was no one in there that I recognized. We had always been in a family court setting. All of a sudden, everything was completely cleared out. There wasn't a lot of people around at all. It was almost like a private courtroom. There was convicted people on the other side. So on the side that I'm supposed to go sit in are men with long beards and shackles and orange jumpsuits.
So you were in a criminal court, it sounds like.
On a continuance. This is the continuance of, I don't know what was going on because they knew that I wasn't able to get legal help. They blocked me from getting legal help at the courthouse, sent me away, and they knew that I wasn't able to get it outside of that or domestic violence help. So they knew that I was coming in there alone again. But again, I knew that's the law, and I knew that I had the evidence to protect me and River. So I thought I was fine based on the law being able to protect in a court of law. I didn't
Did you have the
realize
same lawyer? Did you have the same judge at that in that hearing, or was it a different one?
Guess what? The Judge Khan, who was probably like the only judge out of all of them that was trying to give any kind of fairness and make sure that I had, some kind of legal, interaction with someone that could give me direction. And probably also knew by his basic code of oath that he had enough evidence there that he was not allowed to give River away. He was not allowed to sell River to his father like they did. So Judge Khan protected his job enough to not do that. But what ended up happening was he gave me specific orders. The lawyer in the testimony and in the documentation of the first hearing stated, I want you, Judge Khan, let's make sure we get a date for the continuance where we can have you as the judge. So made sure to verbatim state that, right? So I come back on the 8th for the continuance. Judge Khan isn't there. There's a criminal court going on. The prosecutor's acting like she doesn't know me. There's only one other case in the room, and that's one based on some superfluous, it looked like a circus. It looked like a acting. It looked like these were like actors. I don't know. It was just bizarre. Mm-hmm. There was never, I had never been in there with guys in shackles and orange jumpsuits, So then the lady in front of me is like, oh, this is a new judge. You'll like him. He's a real judge. And I'm like, what does that mean, he's a real judge? And so this guy comes out, Judge Doherty, whatever. And he, that's how you spell it and pronounce it.
Judge Doherty, yeah.
Judge Doherty is a retired judge. So they got a retired judge. Okay, this is one of three. This is one of three retired judges that they got to preside over. That day, I knew at that moment when I found out that he was a retired judge that I was getting blackmailed in that courtroom.
Yeah,
I knew that there was no witness.
Total setup. Yep.
There was no witnesses, so I immediately and again instinctively, wasn't aware of this, but I instinctively set my voice. I started recording because I knew there's fraud going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it. I'm watching it. The prosecutor's acting like she doesn't know who I am. There's criminals on the other side to intimidate me and create this vibe in the courtroom of overpowering and controlling me. And there is a retired judge sitting in the space of the judge who his lawyer made a huge deal about coming back to see him specifically for the continuance, which tells me that he did that on record because he was going to pull some strings behind, and he wanted to have on the transcript for Judge Khan to come back and ask for the date. And he knew that he was going to pull some strings with the courthouse to get a retired judge in there. So because I knew, again, instinctively, this is fraud, this is corruption. There's no reason a retired judge that I'm seeing a second judge who doesn't even know my case. Nobody's here to witness what's about to go down, and everyone in this courtroom has something against me because Jamie Johnson, the prosecutor, knew that I wrote the write-up about her, so she wanted me to go down. She knew that I wrote a thing about her unprofessional behavior, and so she also knew that I had, as evidence, her emails, my emails to her stating the domestic violence that had happened prior, so she was well aware of that, and she wanted me taken care of. So everyone in that courtroom had an incentive to completely obstruct justice against me, completely negate any due process, completely deny me any of my basic rights, and they literally, with a retired judge, without me in the room, signed my parental rights over that day.
Oh, my God.
That day and again, refusing to look at the stack of evidence that would have completely barred Adam from even being able to be in the courtroom in a legitimate way. They refused to look at the entire stack, gave him literally signed, and it was done. Adam was at my house trying to get River in less than an hour, so they couldn't have even gone over his evidence.
Wow.
But because I left, right before this happened, the lady, the recorder, comes over to me and starts yelling at me, "You can't have that in here. You can't. What are you trying to record?" And I was like, "I don't have a witness, ma'am. I need a witness. There's no one in here that can witness what is happening? And they knew that they were doing fraud. Everyone in that courtroom that was participating in this knew that this was part of the internal court working of when they want to screw someone.
Yeah.
So for me to not willingly just be some dumb young woman that didn't know what was going on, my mother's instinct kicked in. Even if I didn't have a law degree, fraud is fraud is fraud is fraud. Corruption is corruption. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out when you're in an environment where people are trying to harm you.
Yeah.
Instinct kicks in. And so I was able to survey what was happening, and I knew that I needed documentation for that. So immediately the judge stands up and starts, the retired judge, he's literally sweating because he knows he was hired to do this. He's a retired judge. He's not supposed to be in the courtroom presiding over custody,
Wow.
without having any, actual evidence or anything. So he starts screaming, get out, and then he calls all the sheriff's office up. So 7 or 8 sheriff's officers start running up, and coming in the courtroom, and they run right by me because unbeknownst to them, they have no idea that the guy is calling them for little me, So I'm trying to talk to the sheriff, what do I do? That's not my judge. This is my name's not on the docket. I took a picture because my name, Adam versus, or the state versus whoever, none of that was there. The windows were shut. The whole thing was just bizarre. It was just bizarre. So
it sounds like a nightmare.
What was a nightmare? And the cops were confused because, they're doing what the judge is telling them to do, but they don't understand why the judge is calling 6 or 7 sheriffs, because the judge got scared because he got caught. So basically everybody panicked because I didn't follow in line with, basically pulling a Cecil the Lion and walking out and getting shot in the face. I didn't do that. And that infuriated all of them. So much so that he literally, at that day, signed my parental rights away temporarily. So Adam comes to get River, tells me that he's just paid over $20,000 in a matter of less than 2 months, and that River is basically his property now, and that he's done the paperwork to get it. And I'm like, absolutely not, And I try to, talk to him. At that point, I'm like, this is so crazy. I don't know what's going on. So I was just trying to talk to him and be like, Adam, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he was not even in any kind of reasonable, logical frame of mind. So anyways, long story short, I spend September 16th, the morning of September 16th, in between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. in Seattle, Washington, is when they came to my house. So exactly a week after they signed my son away with a retired judge, after seeing no evidence, they came with detectives, and I spent the entire week trying to, again, talk to domestic violence shelters. I went to my doctor. I was panicking. I went to my social worker, panicking. Something's going on. Adam's trying to take custody from me. They're writing letters to the courts that are being completely ignored, trying to let the courts know, hey, this guy has a pattern of history of abuse with her. He's probably, using these court proceedings because he can't physically abuse her anymore to abuse her and her son. And she has a long history of this. Again, they refused to look at any of that. And so 2 detectives, they were stalking my house for that entire week. I had to stay out with River every day and go to parks and go wherever I could, calling around. Nobody would help me. It was almost like they were calling places in Seattle and saying, don't touch this. Nobody would call me back. I had my social worker call places with me, and nobody would even call her back, which is bizarre, So something's going on big at this point, and I'm very intuitively aware, and I also I don't know, Adam says that he has papers that sign my parental rights away. But again, I knew what went down in that courtroom. I knew that they didn't see any evidence. I knew that there wasn't even a hearing. It wasn't even a judge.
Right.
I knew that nothing that was supposed to happen for him to have that happen happened. So in my mind, that is not legal documentation. And I thought that he was probably just saying that. And they were going to send me something about having a new hearing with our judge, Judge Khan. I don't know. I didn't know what was going to go down, but I knew that I needed legal help immediately, and I knew that I needed to keep my son very close to me. And try as much as I could to get help, but I was panicking. All the people that were supposed to help me, I mean, my social worker was calling the police and having the police come and check on me to make sure Adam didn't kill me in the middle of the night. Like, that's documented. This is documented before Adam took custody. So there is police records of social workers calling, being concerned about my welfare and well-being because of my ex. And they just thought, again, won't even look at that. They won't look at anything. You asked if CPS was involved. Well, I actually tried to get CPS involved, both Washington State and Oregon. So let me back up a little bit. They refused both, by the way. They refused both because they didn't want to be. Nobody wants to be involved. But there was a CASA ordered by Judge Kahn, a special court-appointed special advocate. The lawyer was able to nix the CASA and get it back within the family court services, back in the clique of corruption. So there's never been any kind of investigation on myself or Adam.
Wow.
To remove a baby from a beautiful, happy home, forcefully, violently, threw me on the ground in front of my 3-year-old. I mean, they came to my door, sheriff, we got a habeas corpus. So they're telling me, I get an email that morning. This is September 16th. I get an email at the same time that they're coming to my house at the door saying that there's a hearing going on right now in Kent, Washington, which is 45 minutes to an hour south in rush hour, which is the time of day it was. South of here, we do not have a Kent case. We have a Seattle case. Our case is 15-5-002288-CSEA, Seattle, not Kent. They took because they did a retired judge, and they knew they screwed up, and they knew it was documented, and they knew that they were going to have a hard time getting physical possession of River on if I just had that document. That's overt fraud, right? That's just, you have a retired judge sign someone's someone's rights away, and then you strong-arm her. So basically what they did was to cover up having the first of 3 retired judges, because then they were like, oh, shit, we have to, we have to normalize this. So we got to put a bunch of retired judges in this case to make it look like this is what we do. Because there was like 7 to 8 to 9 judges, and I've only had like a couple hearings. So anyways, on the 16th, in the same hour, because the paper is stamped 9:58, these police officers were in my home tackling me. My neighbor, it's so traumatic. My neighbor comes in and starts filming it. I mean, it was just horrible. The guy busts my face up, my lips all bleeding, my son is screaming. The other detective has my son around the neck, the underneath the shoulder and the neck. Just, dragging him around until he realizes he's on camera. And then when you see the camera pan back over to him, he's patting him on his back. But I have still shots, Bring River Home and the Facebook page and stuff, the still shots of him holding my son under the neck.
Now, before you go on, give the listeners the URL to your blog, because you started a website to bring River home, and it's called Bring River Home to Mama Lonna, and Mama is spelled with 1 M. Right, Bring River Home to mamalonna.wordpress.com for everyone who wants to see these videos of how Lonna's baby was removed from her in this very violent way. So go on.
It was horrific. It was horrific, and I was in complete fight or flight mode. I mean, so at trial, this detective said that I attacked him. And that's why he had to hold River like that. But we clearly see me being pinned under a 250 to 300-pound man with the man holding River under his neck. So the detective boldly lied on stand. And even in cross-examining him, I was able, when I cross-examined all these people that testified against me, all these false witnesses, they were all covering their own butts, obviously. They were all obviously trying to create the same fabrication because they were all panicking. Every single person involved in this knows that they are doing criminal activity. They know it. This is a knowing, malicious act. There is once this does go and the counter lawsuit goes forward, there will never be a time where I accept a plea where these people did not know what they were doing. Because even at the time that they were doing it, there have been so many things that have panned out since then that these people have gone further and further and further into their lie and corruption to cover their own butt.
They have to keep covering it up. Yep.
So that's exactly. So while I'm being tackled for the physical custody of my son, the hearing with the official judge, that's a not retired judge, a woman that's never met me, in a courthouse that's not even our courthouse, it's a foreign courthouse. It's even on the edge of King County. It's almost like not even in King County. They tell me that if I don't give up, that they're taking me to do a detention center. If I don't give up custody, that that I'm going to jail, basically. They told, in the thing you see them saying, we're arresting you, but they never did arrest me. That was all scare tactics. As soon as they realized they were being videotaped, the whole tone changed. They were extremely violent, extremely, aggressive. They both came at me from both ends to get Rivers, so they literally ambushed me in my home. And then as soon as they realized they were being videoed, they totally changed and acted like I was the one being erratic. They're in my home stealing my son, and they're trying to act like I'm the one being erratic.
Did they even show you a warrant?
They had this stack of papers, this same stack of papers that they kept printing out over and over and over again, Adam's lawyer. So it just looked like the same stack of papers. When, after he left, I saw that it was a habeas corpus that was signed 2 days prior Judge James Doherty, he's our first, unethical retired judge involved in this. I'm not going to say Judge Kahn because Judge Kahn actually did what he was supposed to do, but Judge Doherty was obviously a bought retired judge. Canada Thurston, I think, is her name, because she's one of the ones that granted, the one that denied my first restraining order against Adam over that technicality of touching the phone, granted Adam a restraining order against me without me being present, without me knowing about the hearing, and without having an affidavit of why they needed the restraining order.
Wow.
Granted a restraining order. And this restraining order, so I have now a restraining order on my record after I tried 3 separate times to get a restraining order against Adam, and all 3 times because there was a previous custody matter going on. They said that they weren't even, again, refused to even look at my evidence. So every single judge that I went to, including the trial judge, refused to look at the official pertinent legal evidence that would exonerate me from these claims.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one. That is against judicial canons, that is against judicial oaths and code, that is breaking the law. Not only that, but that content of that material states that Adam is in violation of almost all the RCW 2609-191 codes, which are the restrictions for all parenting plans, temporary and permanent. So he is in direct violation of that. He's in direct violation of the criteria to even request a temporary parenting plan, which is 2609-197. And so I know these laws through and through, back and forward, and they are so angry that I know this without having a lawyer, that they are just care. They're just bypassing it. They're pretending like those laws don't exist, and they're doing whatever they want.
They've already
paid the money. Go ahead.
Right. It sounds to me like Adam's father probably paid the retired judge a bunch of money to set this up. And the motives for that, I don't even know if it is to get Adam out of child support. It sounds like there's some pedophile activity going on.
Something's going on. Yes.
I hope that's not it, but this is how children are trafficked for sex trafficking purposes.
Yep.
The fact that Adam was already hanging out with registered sex offenders is a real red flag in your story. And there's a chance that Adam's father is involved with elite pedophilia.
Exactly.
has paid off some people high at the top to steal your son from you.
Yep, that's exactly what. That is into a T, what my instinct, my intuition, and logically what I can deduce from the insane behavior and paper trail that I have in front of me. That is the only. That is actually one of the only logical explanations for the insanity that me and my son have experienced.
It sounds like the father has enough money not to have to worry about the little bit of child support that Adam was owing you. And,
Correct.
The fact that Adam really wasn't, he didn't want the baby, he wanted the abortion, and it wasn't involved with your son after your son was born. It just sounds to me like his father is behind all of this and has orchestrated all of this. And I worry that the father of Adam and possibly Adam as well and his friends are involved with pedophilia.
I agree 100% because like we just stated, there is no other logical reasoning for taking a baby, concealing him. The only reason that they want him concealed is because then I can't see any of the marks. He can't. Nobody's investigating. The state is protecting this. So even if there wasn't, there is inference that there is because of the sexual deviant behavior and because of the documented evidence to the prosecutor. It is documented. It is emailed to the prosecutor and to his lawyer in July, prior to any of this even being requested, prior to Adam even requesting custody. So the state knowingly and willfully participated. Dan Satterberg, who I contact regularly, who's the King County prosecutor, knows exactly what he's doing. Not only that, let me let you know that Judge Edie has a history, I researched, of extorting other quote-unquote whistleblowers or other common citizens where he can benefit monetarily. So he basically, there's everyone-business.org, there's another story of Judge Edie basically extorting this couple because he could benefit over $800,000 with his wife's real estate agency, Winmere. So
that is the third judge involved, Judge Edie?
No, that's the trial judge. There was several judges in between this. So you see, they never had one of the same judges unless it was to reverse something around on me, like in retaliation.
So they keep shoveling the case from judge to judge to judge to confuse you, to throw you off, to complicate the case, to throw you off track. We have about 15 minutes left. Tell me where the case is now.
Well, right now, we did go to trial. I had everything completely organized. So I have PhD, my PhD professor who graduated from Washington State University, who's also a mental health professional, writing the court saying that Lonna is not mentally unwell in any way. She is being abused, and the courts are facilitating this. And again, they're refusing to look at this. We're writing the senators. Senator Murray was also written. All the senators, all the officials, Jay Inslee, Ed Murray, the mayor, all these people are well aware of what's going on. They're all in on it.
They're all in on it. Yeah. The elite pedophiles are all the way at the top of the system, and it trickles down. So it's not even trickling from the bottom up; it's trickling from the top down. It's going all the way from the highest politicians, into the judicial system.
It is the most pathetic, emasculating. To be involved in this, you are lower than the lowest common denominator.
These are the scum of the earth, and they rule the judicial system.
Well, not for long. Not for long. We're in a sea change, and that's part of this interview, and that's a part of other mothers coming together. Where the case is right now is we're doing a social media revolution, where we're using the hashtag a mother's revolution, which covers all mothers, every mother. And it's every mother's, like one woman's battle, one mother's battle, whatever her thing is. It's a tag to personalize and also collectively get the word out about the struggle that mothers go through to just protect their children.
Well, let me commend you on the fact that you are so outspoken. That this is so wonderful that you are going public, and I want to give a shout out to you for doing this because I see you fighting really hard on social media. You're extremely courageous for coming on the show today and sharing your story and mentioning these people by name. You're very, very brave for doing that. And I really would like the other protective mothers who are listening right now to look at you as an example in this, because if we all do this, if we all collectively go public with our cases and make websites and social media campaigns, then these people cannot hide. This evil only happens because it's covered up. So if we shine the light on it, these people, we need to publicly shame them. We need to make sure people vote them out of office. We need to hold them accountable. And this is the only way to get organized. Yes,
as mothers, we need to get these. This is so important what you're doing, and thank you so much for acknowledging that. And it has been the hardest battle, struggle, and I know every mother and every individual listening right now understands exactly what I'm talking about. If you've endured any of this, it is hell on earth. And hell is not only for children, it's for the mothers fighting for their children.
Very good. But yes, exactly. Yep.
What the end result of this is, hell is going to be for judges and corrupt officials and pedophiles, because we are going to bring so much information and so much understanding. We are not going to give room. There will be no room to breathe. There will be no room to breathe on this. Hell will be for the understanding of the officials that are now publicly humiliated, publicly disgraced, demoted from their positions, all the public officials, prosecuted. Hell will be for them and their families who have allowed this to endure, have facilitated and propagated this. And hell will be for those people indefinitely to understand what they've done and to realize at any moment every single ounce of it will be exposed, every single ounce of it. Everything that was done in the dark will be shown in the light. And that is a promise from here to kingdom come. So
that's right. You cannot hide from these people cannot hide from their own conscience. Eventually they will be faced. They have to face what they have done, what pain they have inflicted, what human rights violations they have inflicted, and they will have to meet their maker. And they will be held accountable in a whole different kind of court of law. So how can people get in touch with you, Lonna? Let's talk about that. I mentioned the website, and also in the description of this radio show, you can click on the link that will take you to the website. But I'm on your website right now. I don't see a contact button. Would you like people to contact you via Facebook?
Facebook is actually the easiest way, and also because I have the Bring River Home Now connected directly with my personal Facebook. Everything I try to post as much as I can on both, because what I do, basically what I'm doing is similar to, because I'm in advertising as well, it's similar to the advertising mechanisms of unconscious idea planting that the major industries use. But I'm essentially putting this information, and I have been for consecutive months. So what this is doing is people might not consciously, maybe now because it's been 10 months, they might not consciously recognize River and I, but because they've seen it over and over and over and over again, and this information and updates and more pictures and the people involved and how this is developing, people are aware of this story, and they are aware of River and I, and they are,
you're
whether
bringing
they want
a really
to or not.
You're bringing up a really good point, because and that's so cool about the fact that you know about marketing, because this is something I also teach in college. The idea of it's not enough to just make a website. You need to create blog posts and then push these posts through Facebook, through Twitter, through Google+, through Instagram, and keep the awareness about your case constantly in the consciousness of the public. So at some point, everyone knows Lonna and River. It's just it's kind of almost like you're branding your own human rights violations case. This is what the listeners, the other protective mothers who are unaware of how to go about this is what you need to do. You need to constantly, you need to keep up the pressure, keep naming the names, keep giving the audience the updates, because people do care. You know, the good people out there are really concerned and they want to know what's going on. And it's not like you're going to give your whole strategy away in these social media posts.
This is a strategy that has to be given away. It wants to be given away. It wants to be shared. It wants.
I mean to say, like, you're not giving your judicial strategy away in the blog post. You're just informing people after the fact when you've done things, and they can go public. Then you push it on your website and through social media. But you hold your own judicial strategy, for yourself, because you obviously you don't want to inform the opposing party of your plans. But now I'm on your.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure, because we have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure people can contact you, because once I started sharing the link, the announcement to this radio show on social media, there were immediately people who contacted me and say, I can help Lonna, I have ideas, please put me in touch with her. And I'm on your website, and what I'm going to ask you to do is add a plugin to your WordPress.com website, and make sure that you add a plugin that allows people to click to your Facebook page. So when they're on your website, it's one click away from your Facebook page, and then they can contact you.
It's on the first page. It's on the very first page. If you go, when you go on the blog, it'll say what's going on here, and that's kind of like the introduction page. And you'll see on the left-hand side all the different blog entries, the successive, how this is panned out and the evidence there. And just to reiterate, my judicial strategy is to be honest and to publicly display all my evidence, because I want the public to be the judges, not these corrupt judges. I want the public to know what the judges are seeing and what they're ignoring to be able to do this. So I don't even mind that my judicial strategy be exposed, because it's truth-telling. And that's what the whole legal system is about, is to get to a space of truth and objective, cohesive reality between multiple perceptions. And so
For some mothers, they might be in slightly different situations than yours. So they might be doing things in the background with individuals, attorneys, NGOs, and they might not want to share everything they're doing. Also, what I also want to mention is a lot of the mothers contact me about the fact that the opposing party, the abusive fathers who have custody, are stalking them online, and I wanted to say something about that to the audience, to the protective mothers who are listening. I highly recommend that you have all your devices screened for spyware, that you make sure that you open a secure email account that cannot be hacked or tracked, and that a Swiss account that you could use is Proton Mail, Proton, protonmail.com. It cannot be hacked and it cannot be tracked. And this is a great way for protective mothers to communicate things to each other that they don't want their exes to know, because some of these ex-husbands or some of these abusive fathers are very savvy with IT stuff, and they know how to hack email accounts. And like, my bank account was hacked by my ex, and my email account was hacked by my ex. And had I known that this kind of stuff was going down, I would have definitely secured my information. So, I just wanted to share that with the audience. Make sure your devices are spyware free. If you're not sure, then go and buy a cheap tablet with cache don't register it for a warranty, and you can always use the Tor browser if you want to go and browse things that you don't want people to know about. You can use the search engine DuckDuckGo, and these are ways to stay safe and to make sure that whatever you plan to do, or is not necessarily tracked by authorities, by people who are trying to frame you. Because the mafia that we're up against, they are, we're talking about judges and attorneys, and they have powers to get into your accounts and to get into your information. So you got to be careful, right?
Well, the ample reasons when the letter to Judge Craighead that Cindy Dumas from the Women's Coalition helped me write up, and they wrote back to everyone that wrote to them saying that there were, quote unquote, ample reasons to take River from me. Those ample reasons were the fact that the lawyer and my ex literally stalked every word that I wrote to anyone after and that's what they used in a court of law. That's what they used as my character. They nefariously twisted every kind of artistic expression, every request for help, everything, and they took that and they literally submitted that as evidence against my parenting. Well,
you're doing the perfectly right thing, because for any mom who's completely lost custody and you're not even seeing your son, if you don't see your children, you have nothing to lose. Go public with your case.
Exactly.
Follow Lonna's example. And we are getting to the end of the show, so I want to use this opportunity to ask anyone who can help Lonna to please get in touch with her and to help her out, help her get her son River back. So thank you, Lonna, for sharing your story, for being so brave, for coming forward, to being a fearless, strong mama. You're doing a wonderful job fighting back, and I support you 100%. We'll be in touch on Facebook, and I'll let you know if people contact me as well with any help they might have for you.
That would be amazing.
And I want to wish you so much luck. I hope this radio show contributes to you reuniting with River as soon as possible, and for getting all these authorities to be held accountable for their actions and being punished as such. So thanks for being on the show. Thank you
for having this.
All right. And, to all our listeners, I hope to see you again next week on House for Children. Thank you, Lonna. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.